Hello there, welcome to my vodcast. My name is Jaymz B. This is YouTube or Facebook, or maybe you're looking at it at jaymzb.ca. You should go there anyway and take a look at a lot of the interesting and fun things I've been doing, and some of the old stuff I've been doing too. But visit my site, and maybe while you're at it, check out barberfinancial.com. Captain Paul Barber, a sponsor of this vodcast for many, many moons. He can help you with your finances. Also, Barbarian Steakhouse. Where would we be without this amazing steakhouse in Toronto? It's been around since 1959, and if you haven't been there, go and take my word for it. And if you don't eat meat, if you eat seafood, I go there for seared tuna and lobster and salmon all the time. Who else? Oh, Patreon. That could be you. People who donate to Patreon are really helpful, and I want to thank you all for supporting this. 5, 10, 20 bucks a month. Anything you can do really helps, and I know you don't have to, so it's a double thank you for that. Let's get to the clubs. Teri Parker is my guest in about 5 minutes from now. She's going to come in, talk about her love of the piano and her love of Geri Allen and Mary Lou Williams, two jazz greats who deserve all the accolades we can bestow upon them, and she has a band called Free Spirits, and they're playing tonight at Jazz Bistro, and so you can see this amazing band playing the music of Geri Allen and Mary Lou Williams. Teri Parker's there tonight. That's a 9 p.m. show. Bill McBurney and Bernie Sinensky are there tomorrow night. Their CD, The Silent Wish, is up for a Juno, and for good reason. Piano and flute never sounded so good. They are talking to each other. They speak the same language. They're so joined at the hip, I call them Bill McBurney Sinensky. And I've said that a lot. Bartosz Hadala is coming with his group on Sunday, 8 p.m. show. So come in at 6 or 7, have dinner. Bartosz is a guy who just packs the Jazz Bistro every time he plays. So you'll want to get down there. That's going to be one happy piano this weekend. And David Rebell is there on Wednesday hosting a jazz jam. If you are an established artist, there are lots of people for you to sit in with. If you are an up-and-coming artist and you just want to give it a shot, come on down, bring your axe and sit in. And if you're a person who just loves great jazz, it's a $10 cover and you'll hear some amazing music. So that's Wednesday. Thursday and Friday, Mark Eisenman Quartet. His special guest is Mike Murley, and Mark Eisenman, again, one of Canada's great piano players. Whenever he plays there, they do very well. So Thursday, Friday, grab some dinner and enjoy Mark Eisenman Quartet. And on Saturday, I know that's a full week away, but I just want to let you know Heather Luckhart's having a birthday. She's bringing out all of her friends. It's going to be a hootenanny full of singers and great musicians celebrating the wonderful Heather Luckhart. Okay, so that's Jazz Bistro. Over to Hugh's Room. Laura Smith is there. Well, it's a fundraiser for Laura Smith. She's not well, and so Lenny and Wendy Solomon, John Sheard, David Woodhead, a whole bunch of great musicians are coming to celebrate her and to raise money for her. Saturday, Miss Emily is over at Hugh's Room Live. Miss Emily has 5 albums out, a really powerful voice, a ridiculous range, so emotive and so beautiful. It'll be interesting to see Miss Emily there on Saturday, this Saturday. March 2 and 3, Dr. Mike Daly talks about James Taylor and sings about James Taylor. He's a guitarist, he's a smarty pants, he tells people's life stories and breaks into song, and it's a really cool thing. He does it a lot there, and this time it's on Sunday and Monday. Tuesday, March 4th, Centennial College Music Night. Now that's a $10 cover, and these are groups from within Centennial College, different departments coming out and playing music, so you can expect some ska, some funk, some soul, some rap, probably world music, every kind of music will be there on March the 4th. Lula! Son de Lula are performing again tonight. I think they're the main band there now over dinner, and I've been to see them 3 out of 5 times. I tell you, you're not going to do better than Son de Lula with a beautiful dinner at Lula Lounge. And you can get down there at 7:30, have dinner, and go somewhere else. But maybe you want to stay because Rojitas is performing. DJ Suave, it's a big dance party at Lula Lounge every Friday and Saturday night. Saturday, Charangon del Norte. I should be able to say that by now. They play there at least once a month. DJ Santiago Velasquez is also there. It's Salsa Saturday. And on the 1st, Shine. It's a 7 p.m. show. It's going to showcase some young folk artists, but also some famous ones. Laurie Yates, Hey Stella, Shane Pendergast. It's their 11th anniversary of Shine, and that's a 7 p.m. show on the 1st. Homesmith Bar, Old Mill Inn, all their shows are 7:30 to 10:30, no cover, $20 minimum. Very close to the Old Mill subway, plenty of parking across the street, not very expensive, and it's a great hangover there. Lily Frost is there with Robert Scott, Eric St. Laurent, and Russ Boswell tonight. That's really cool because Lily Frost has never sung at the Homesmith Bar before. She did play the Old Mill, but never the Homesmith Bar. So that's really cool. On the 29th, Josh Grossman is there, and he's there with Carissa Neufeld on piano, Malcolm Connor on the bass, and Ben Ball on the drums. I wonder if Ben will sing a little bit. I like his singing voice. Josh Grossman, the trumpeter and one of the booking guys over at the TD Toronto Jazz Festival. Connected. Writes great tunes and plays trumpet. So there you go. That's on Saturday. Tuesday the 3rd, Gene Denovi has clarinet master James Campbell joining him. Gene Denovi is 91. He is so famous and so important to Canadians. He wrote a song with Johnny Mercer. He hung out with Duke Ellington. He has crazy stories, this 91-year-old, and he's still performing, and he will talk your ear off. He's a charming gentleman. You can go back to one of my old podcasts, if you like, and hear him for about an hour telling stories. He's a fascinating guy. I just love him. And then on Wednesday, Carl Silveira. Now, Carl is a trombone player that I don't know. Matt Newton is there on piano. Dan Fortin on bass. Wah! Nico Dan on drums. This is going to be a good young band, hot shots, playing for the first time over at Homesmith Bar. And Maureen Kennedy, Jeff McLeod on piano, Ben Bishop on guitar, John Meyer on bass, and the sweet, incredible voice of Maureen Kennedy. She's totally unique in this town. She sounds like she walked out of a 1950s movie. It's sultry, it's true jazz, it's really interesting. So Maureen Kennedy on Thursday the 5th. And I'm always saying this, April 14th, just pencil it in for now. You'll get information in about a week or two. But April 14th, save that date. It's my birthday, and it's a huge benefit for Unison Benevolent Fund. 20 bands in 10 rooms for a $50 cover. It's going to be incredible. You get a wristband, and you can go through the whole building into any room you want and watch whatever kind of music you like. So that's coming up. But you know what's really coming up? Teri Parker. She is a great piano player, a composer. I've been a fan, but I have never met her before, and she's walking into my house right about now. Here we go.
Great.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Teri Parker, you're new in my life, but your music isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. How long have you been recording?
I think it's been about 10 years now. My first duo album came out about 10 years ago.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And where did you start? How did you know you needed to play piano and compose?
Well, piano I always knew, age of 6 basically. I remember, my parents didn't want to sign me up yet, but I kind of begged for lessons, so I think I always...
That's the opposite of a lot of kids. Do I have to practice?
I know.
Yeah.
Well, my parents ran music studios, and so I was always around it. Even as a baby, they would take me to their festivals and concerts, and I was around a lot. And when my dad started a new studio in Brampton, he used me as a guinea pig on one of their new, people that was doing enrollments.
Yeah.
And I, passed the aptitude test, and I was really excited and begged to, get to start my lessons. So. Yeah, I always loved music, and I did piano class, all growing up, and then eventually joined the, rock band as a teenager.
Was it academy kind of training? What kind of schooling or education did you have in piano?
It was I was at a studio, so I was in group lessons actually for my whole, I didn't do any private lessons until I was in grade 8 piano, I think, is when I started private lessons. So I had a lot of experience always playing in groups.
What about your first band? Was it a rock band?
Yeah, it was a rock band. Actually, my first band, I did at the studio, they had run by the teachers, bands. So I did that at probably age 12 and 13. But my first rock band that was just, as a teenager joining a rock band was with a couple other guys at the studio that I took lessons at, and I started teaching at it when I was about 15, and it was a progressive rock band.
Of course.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah. For jazz people, prog rock is it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to play, it impresses people.
Yeah. So I think we played Dream Theater covers, and I had a core, mic, Triton or whatever it was called, and And yeah, we did that, and then the guitar player wrote a lot of music, but it was all, you know, technically challenging, multimeter, you know, and we played, like, we would drive into Toronto and do those Battle of the Bands shows that, you know, I think
And
a lot of people
did you
does.
win a couple?
I don't know if we did or not. I can't remember. It was a long time ago.
Maybe it was
now.
too complicated. If you don't remember, you probably didn't.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of those were audience based, and
Right.
But you know, yeah, we had fun.
Wow. So I'm thinking about prog rock. Were you listening to Emerson, Lake and Palmer or Rush or any of these bands?
Not Rush as much. I
Not
did listen.
because that was harder rock
I
than
listened
prog.
to
Yeah.
Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I remember lifting there's a piano song I lifted, and
Yeah.
I listened to a lot of Dream Theater and Tool and
King Crimson.
a little bit of that, yeah.
Yeah.
And I went and saw a lot of the concerts too. Like my high school boyfriend was very much into this, so we would go to these concerts together. And
You know, our age difference. I realize I'm saying stuff from the 60s and 70s. You're talking Tool. That makes more sense.
yeah, it's like the 90s, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're in a rock band, and you're already living. And you're in Brampton at this point, or Toronto?
Milton.
In Milton.
Milton, Maine.
So when did you make the big move to Toronto?
Well, I always loved the city. Like, even from a young age, I always wanted to come to the city and see things. And, you know, when I was a teenager, we would come in and see some jazz. We would go to the Montreal Bistro, and we'd go to the Senator. Probably at age 15, 16, I'd start coming in on my own with friends, and we would go see shows at these places.
Right, because they were restaurants, and people underage could easily go, because you just go and
Yes.
have some food and watch a band.
Yeah,
right?
and I remember the days, actually, of the Rex when the smoking was in there, and I couldn't go see the show, not because it was a bar, but because of the smoking laws. Like,
Yeah.
minors couldn't go because of the smoking laws. So I always remember wanting to go to see whatever band at the Rex, and I couldn't go until I was probably 17 or 18 was when those laws changed, I think.
Right.
And then I moved to Toronto when I was 18 to go to University of Toronto. But I always loved the city, and I knew, like, I wanted to be here.
Who were some of your teachers that really gave you an edge, that gave you something that you walked away with?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, even, you know, in high school, like, the music teachers were great, and, you know, I think without them, I wouldn't have continued on.
Yep.
But then at school, I mean, all the teachers at U of T were great. Like, I had Dave Restivo for a couple of years, and I was studying with David Braid for a year. Teri I had for a lot of classes, and he was great. You know, I had arranging.
Is there something that is different between them, their approach? Like, I think of Restivo and Braid, they play very different.
Yes, their
Do they
approach-
teach very different?
Yeah, they do. I mean, Restivo, I think about this in their playing too. Restivo is a very free spirit, and he, like, I think David Bray is a little more analytical, logical, systematic with his teaching. So he would have, like, a specific, you know, plan for that day, and we actually would write a lot of things out. Like, we would write out piano arrangements and things. Whereas Restivo, it was a little more loose. Like, I would usually ask Dave Restivo, like, hey, can you show me how to do drop tuba voicings? And then we would jam a lot of the time. He had a drum kit in the teaching room, so he would play drums and I would play piano, and it was a little more casual, I guess, that way.
Yeah. And Promain, great trombone player, arranger.
Yes, he's great, and he was very, he was no nonsense, I guess, is what I would say. Like, if you worked really hard and did, you know, worked at it, he was very supportive and helpful. But if you slacked off, you know, there was no
Right.
BS with
You're
him.
wasting my time.
You're wasting my time, and he would, you know, right in class in front of everybody get mad at you. So, but I was one of the good ones. So, you know, I always did my homework, and he was supportive. He would, like, throw me gigs and stuff if they came in.
You ever hear stories about Buddy Rich getting mad at his band?
I don't know. No, I
Some
don't.
band members said that what people forget is some of those people had it coming, that they weren't pulling their weight, they were bringing the band
Yeah.
down, and he'd get really upset. It's because he was a perfectionist. So there are two sides. So when I hear about strict teachers, I'm like, yeah, it does make sense, though. They're getting you ready for the real world.
Well, yeah,
Right?
and I think sometimes, and when you're young, you know, and you don't realize, like, you're still growing, you're still learning, you don't realize how much you don't know. And so if you don't have a strict teacher who really lays into you now and then, you might not ever learn.
Right.
So, you know, I definitely had, like, Quincy Natchoff was a very strict teacher. I had him for a couple classes. Yeah, so they were all great. And then post-school, I did a couple study projects. I went to New York for a few months on
Right.
a grant.
You
and
studied with Fred Hirsch.
got to stay with Fred Hirsch. During that, like, 3-month period, it was Fred Hirsch and Sophia Rosoff, who is Fred's teacher. She was, like, a 92-year-old guru. You know, you go to her
Whoa.
house, and it was like studying with a, she'd just been doing it forever, and so many people had studied with her. But Fred had sent me to her because he studies with her, so a lot of his students take lessons with both him and Sophia. Like, they jointly teach students, is how he explained it to me. And also Aaron Goldberg, he was very influential for me.
In what way?
Well, just his approach and how he talked about it, and what he made me focus on, kind of opened my eyes a little bit to a few things that I was like, oh, yeah, okay, of course I need to work on that, and then it kind of changed the course of how...
A lot of this was about composition, or was it about playing?
This one was a little more about playing, like improvising, specifically how to work on being a jazz improviser. With Sophie and Fred was more like technique and how to play the piano. Sophia has a very different approach to piano technique than every other teacher I've ever studied with. And the big thing is to play with more body weight so that you can minimize pain. Because if you play with just your fingers, then you'll get a lot more tension. So a lot of people would go to her if they've been having tendonitis or back issues, and she fixes them all, basically.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Now, what happened in Italy? You went to Rome to study.
Yeah, I went to Rome last winter. I was there for 6 weeks and studied with Enrico Piernuzzi. And that was, again, mostly playing, but we did work on composition as well, and he was great also. He was also influential.
Now, this is cool that you take so many lessons and that your parents were already in the business before you, and now you have your own academy.
Yes, yeah.
Is that in Toronto or in Brampton?
It's in Toronto.
It's in Toronto?
Yeah, it's right in the annex at Bathurst and Bloor, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how much of your time... Now, you're done school, right? So now a lot of your time is teaching?
It's teaching. I teach 3 days a week, Monday to Wednesday, and then I manage the studio. We've also got 15 other teachers, so there's, everybody has a couple days a week. That studio also, I rent rehearsal space in there too, so there's a lot of my friends' bands will be in there. So it's that mixed with performance and composing.
And how young is too young? Or how, where do you start? When do you say, I can actually teach this child something?
It depends on the child. We usually do a trial lesson to make sure they're ready. But the youngest generally would be about 5. This one would start them. And even with 5-year-olds, it kind of depends on how long they can sit or focus.
Right.
But yeah, about 5 they can start learning.
Cool. And do you have any students that young, or do you farm those out to the other teachers?
Well, I try to keep it, we all teach the same kind of students. So yes, I do teach 2 5-year-olds I have. But I enjoy having a mix of ages, to be honest, because it's different teaching a 5-year-old. They're really funny. They can say funny things and really make you smile and laugh a little bit. And then I also teach, and then I teach up to adults, 60, 70-year-olds, and then everything in between. Although the majority, I'd say, is age 7 to 13, roughly.
Okay, so you don't have too many of those late teens where they start to think they know more than their teacher or
Now,
something.
I have taught those kids, yeah. I have taught those kids, and it's a struggle because you can see what they need to work on, but it's hard to convince them that they need to work on it. It's
Right.
like a mind game trying to figure out how to trick them into learning,
Right. And reverse psychology doesn't work like it used to. Kids are too smart for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell me about Alison Au. You have worked with Ali Au for a long time.
Yes, I've known her a long time. We first met at NMC camp when we were 18 or 19, and I remember us, jamming on Take 5 or something, and neither of us, being very good, I think, at that point. And so I've known her a long time, and we both sort of been, seeing each other's development over the years. And then we've played, she's been in my quartet since probably, it's been a long time now, more than 5 years, probably 7 or 8 years I've had.
So friendship aside, musically, you guys are really in sync. Do you rehearse a lot?
We rehearse, so when we have a project coming up, like a recording project or an album, then or a gig or something, we rehearse a lot, and then in between, because she's also very busy with her own projects, and she's a busy side musician playing with Mark Godfrey and different people. So, if we don't have something specific coming up, then usually, everybody's got other things that they're having.
You guys could probably hit a festival. Mark Godfrey has a new record out,
Yeah.
so he could do a bass-led band,
Yeah.
and then Ali could do her
Saxophone
record,
band.
and then you could do yours, and you could basically tour Canada with 3 bands and save a lot of money.
Yeah, it would be good.
just change the seat of whoever's sitting in front counting it in,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
With Parker Abbott Trio, how did that come about?
We were both working.
That's just 2 records, right?
There's 3. The first one is just piano duo. It was a little more low key, I guess, and The second two, we had the drummer. We had Mark Sager on drums. We started playing together. We were both working at Lippert Music out in the East End here for a couple years, and we just started, chatting, hanging out, talking about all the music we liked, and we started playing piano duets, and it just sort of naturally developed
Right.
from there.
It's amazing the Wayfinders.
Yeah.
That was the album. Really, really interesting. And you guys were sharing compositions there. You were
Yes,
going
yeah.
back and forth.
Yeah, so we both composed for that band, and we got together a lot. Like we would get together basically weekly, just the two of us, and we would sit with the keyboards and really try to find some new and interesting sounds on the synths and on the Nord, and workshop the music. So we would each write the tunes, but then we would get together and sort of shape them together, and then once
Did you draw straws for who was playing piano and who was playing keyboard?
We didn't. I think it just depended on the song, because when I would write a song, it would always be for keyboard and piano because, that's what we had. It's hard to find venues with two pianos, so we started doing keyboards and piano. And I would just sort of hear who would be on each part. Like I'd be writing and I'd hear myself on piano for this, or I would hear Simon on piano. And I think it ended up being pretty well evenly split. But we didn't purposely, we didn't actively pick
Right.
who would do it. It was more just kind of worked out organically.
So my favorite song, "Strange Dreams," it's a
yeah.
golden chart topper on Jazz FM. It is so strange and beautiful. "Strange Dreams," perfect
Yeah,
title for
yeah.
it. Where does that come from?
That one, so I enjoy playing classical music a lot. Still, as a warm-up, sometimes I'll sit and, play through some classical music. And I think that one, the very first piano chord, might have been like a Debussy voicing, and then I kind of was like, oh, that's an interesting, set of notes. And then it's sort of a cycle. So it's like each part has a phrase, and then they kind of overlap and twist, and then eventually resolve. But yeah, that's where it originally came from. Just sort of sight reading through some Debussy and finding this one sound that I really liked.
That's a better answer than I ever imagined. Usually when I ask someone about a tune, they're like, I don't know, I was walking down the street, I had this song in my head. No, it's beautiful. I love that tune. So tell me now about the new project, The Free Spirits, and Jerry Allen and Mary Lou Williams.
Oh, I'm very excited about this project. It's been something that's been in my mind for a few years now, and I've just been waiting, and now it's come to fruition a little more, but it's been something I've been wanting to do for a couple of years since Jerry Allen passed away. Basically, I thought, I'd really like to put a band together and play some of this music, because it doesn't get played a lot. Like, she played it when she was alive, of course, and she was always a big inspiration for me. I loved her albums, and I got to meet her once, and she's very encouraging, and I've seen her live multiple times. And I came across Mary Lou Williams kind of by chance. Like, I picked up a record. I was at a record store and was sifting through the jazz albums and found this. It was called Free Spirits, so that's where the band name comes from. That was the first Mary Lou album that I picked up, and I just was listening to it on repeat, like, who is this woman? This is incredible.
And she was so important in the history of music.
Very, very.
And again, because it's a sexist music business, she should be as famous
Yes.
as the other greats writing, composing at that time.
Exactly.
She should be up there with, with anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
With Mingus, with anybody.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel too. When I started, listening to the music and researching her, I went, why is she not in the history books the same way as Miles Davis or Thelonious Monk? She gets mentioned, but always, more like
A footnote.
Footnote. Like, she's not talked about as an important figure as some of these other guys. And if you read about her accomplishments, you're like, wow, she should be more prominent.
Duke Ellington was a huge fan of hers.
Yeah,
he was one of the few guys to talk about her whenever he had a chance.
Yeah, exactly. She did some arrangements for Duke Ellington's band, and all those big band guys. I think she did arrangements for a lot of them. Andy Kirk was her first big band. She played with him and wrote a lot of their hit songs. Like, there was I think it was a Benny Golson song. It was like Roll 'Em. She wrote that song, and it was like a huge hit for him. And and Jerry Allen, of course, was influenced by Mary Lou Williams. So there's sort of a lineage of jazz piano between those two, covering the 1920s all the way until like
recent,
very, very recently. And I just wanted to put a project together kind of honoring their music a bit. And so I've transcribed a lot of it. None of it's written down, like very little of it. None of it, I couldn't find any of it anyway. I looked to see, and nothing was published. So all the music we perform, I just lifted from records.
Oh, that's a lot of extra work.
Yeah. So that was part of the project, was like, okay, let's pick the songs I really enjoy and lift them, and then arrange them, of course, for quintet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you doing any festivals? Are you doing, what are the sizes of venues? You go from a small jazz club.
Right now, we've got the Jazz Bistro show coming up next Friday, February.
Which is tonight.
Tonight.
Yeah.
Yes, tonight, February 28th, at 9 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done the Rex, and we've done the Old Mill, and we're going to be doing the Jazz Room in Waterloo in June.
That's a terrific little room with a beautiful
Yes.
piano. You'll be very happy there.
It sounds great.
Yeah.
I played there last year.
And they have a really dedicated audience.
Yes, they do, and they listen,
Yeah.
and the sound guy's really great, and he'll give you some audio. He'll give you the audio after if you want to use it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any festivals booked right now, but I'd love to get some booked at some point.
Yeah.
You know?
And maybe the soundtrack to the Mary Lou Williams biopic, which should be made.
It actually, there is actually a documentary of her, but it's like
But they need the Hollywood biopic. I think it's got to go bigger than a doc.
They need a bigger one.
They got to go
it's
big.
a doc, and it's not. You can't find it anywhere. Like, I've read that it exists, but I couldn't access it anywhere from Canada.
Wow.
So one of the projects I'd like to do is like maybe get a hold of the Hot Docs people or TIFF and see if they can get the rights and do a screening, like a weekend screening, and maybe the band could play.
I have it for you. If we can find the film, the Paradise Theater on Bloor has a band stage and a big theater.
That would be amazing. I've seen bands, because I don't live too far from there, so I've seen the listings, and that's been something in my mind that would be a really cool evening.
They had a show recently. Phil Nimmons was there.
Really?
96, hanging out in the audience, cracking jokes.
Very cool.
Yep. So that's your theater.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think and promoting your own music while you're promoting Mary Lou Williams and Jerry Allen is just a noble mission.
Yeah.
You're like the third piece of the Holy Trinity. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a great show, and I look forward to your next record.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Have a nice day.
Thank you, Teri Parker. Next week, I keep thinking I want to get Sonia Cote here to talk about her book, but we have another emergency. Daniel Barnes will be here to talk about his famous family, his love of drumming, his love of Ethiopian music, Joe Seeley, and more. So Daniel Barnes, the great drummer and composer, will be here next week. And coming up in a few weeks, Sonia Cote, the author of I'm Not Naked Anymore. All right? So stay tuned. And again, if you want to donate to this podcast, Patreon. Thank you. See you next week.